Here we go, man. So the objective of this lesson we're going to title it Strength, Moral Strength, Strength of Character. And the goals and objectives, these are for tonight and tomorrow morning, is that the men will become familiar with the book of 1 Peter. The men will see very practical teachings and commandments. The men will be exposed to some of the common weaknesses we suffer in our society, and we'll compare them with the teachings of the Saint Apostle Peter. Number 4, the men will get practical suggestions on how to move from their current situation through godly struggle and orthodox living to a way of victory and a consistent orthodox manliness as a way of life. So tonight we're just going to go through this introduction, and then we'll close, and then tomorrow we'll pick up with 1 Peter. So, introduction. Men, in our first session, we looked at the very dismal state of manhood that the world, that is in the world today and in the Orthodox Church. It was a very honest look at how we got here. I want to note that I was not, as I already mentioned to you, trying, nor am I proposing that we should go back to the farms. I'm not suggesting that at all. Or that I'm suggesting that we should all have homesteads or something like this, or stop working away from the home. That is not what I'm suggesting. I was just identifying to how we arrived here. I think that the histories that we looked at are instructive enough, and one's able to look at the history and take lessons from it, and they can apply it to their own life and the context that you find yourself in. But what I want to do now is, and what I'm trying to do is give us a clear eye on the reality of our situation and our culture, and begin to work towards repairing our damaged selves as Orthodox manhood in America and our society at large. So the goal here, guys, is that we would first work on ourselves, and that the effect of our working on ourselves would be that it would wake out into our society. There has never been a time that the Orthodox Church has not affected their society in a positive way when they were walking in the light of Christ. Every society that the Orthodox Church came into and began to spread, the society eventually became Orthodox, and people and their lives were changed. And so what I'm proposing is that we identify the problem, messed up understanding of the concept of manliness, femininity, and that we deal with ourselves, and then we act like Christ would have us to act, and that the result of that will be that the society at large begins to have the effect of your life as it touches their life, and the world will change for Christ. So, next point here. The way we do this is becoming Christ-like through the renewing of our mind of the Word and the Word of God, who is Christ Jesus our Lord and King. In other words, we do this through the healing of our noose, through the working of Christ to renew us. So we're going to talk about strength tonight. What is strength? I wish these were a little brighter. The purpose of these lectures, and the title of our weekend really is about strength. So we reviewed the history in the last lecture, and that was to build a platform of truth to gain an understanding of how we got to where we are, to lay out the argument that we need to in order to shift gears and to become the men, again, like the ancient men in the early church, men of renown, That is what the men in the early church were. They were men of renown. Now, you've heard that in the book of Genesis, talking about the Nephilim. But the true men of renown were the men of God, who knew that they lived in a spiritual world, and who, though they were physical, lived the spiritual angelic life. And every single one of you have that ability to heal your soul and your nous to such a great effect that you can live out the life, because you are a spirit being with a physical body. Something different than the angelic beings. They're just spiritual beings, but you are a spiritual being with the physical aspect of it. And that's a very great privilege. We were running out of light here. I might have to stand up here, not because I want to lecture anybody, but because I can't see. That's much better. Okay, not just, this is going to be a bad recording, but you'll be able to hear on Zoom. Not just any man, but Orthodox men. So I just want to talk about strength and power. So let's talk about these two things. They're related, but they're different things. So power is the ability to exert force on a given weight or an object and to move it. Okay, that's what power is. That power is the ability, it's that force to move something. So if you are a true man, you want to have a godly power so that you can move your family, you can move your life, you can move your community in the right direction. That's godly power. Strength, it's different. Being strong, or the strength of an object, that's a term that is used. It's a measure. Strength is a measure of an object that rates its ability to bear under pressure and not have it break. Okay, so do you understand? Like, strength is the ability for something, and things are rated at different strengths. So you can buy cheap steel and it has so much strength, or you can buy medium strength steel or this level of steel and so forth. And you can get different levels of strength of concrete. You can get like the cheap concrete, you can get stronger concrete and so forth. Do you follow this idea of strength? There's a level of strength, and it's rated on the ability for it to bear pressure or bear under certain conditions. The greater its strength, the greater it can bear under the different conditions. So something that's strong has the ability to bear power exerted against it. Something with strength has the ability to bear pressure against it. It has the ability to go through the elements and still maintain its composure. Something that's strong, very strong, can be hit, it can be pounded, it can be abused, and it does not break. The stronger an object is, the longer it will take for that object to break. For instance, there's a lot of examples I could use, but I'll just use a very petty one. When I was first in the lawn care business, I had a hedge trimming job, and part of it I had to get some loppers and lop some stuff off. But I was very, very poor, like I was telling some of you. Like, I was so poor that I didn't have a credit card. I had no credit or anything. And I just had just a little bit of money, and I had to buy loppers, and I thought, well, I could get those steel loppers, but they're $60, but they were steel brand, they're very good quality. Or I could go to Walmart and get these ones that were like $11 or something. This was in 2001, I think, 2001. And I was like, I'll just go to Walmart. So I went to Walmart and got these loppers, and I went and started using them. Within 5 minutes, they broke. And I was like, oh no. And I'm like, oh. I went back to Walmart. I had to leave the job. Was not productive. Went and bought another pair. And those broke too. But I didn't learn my lesson, and I went 2 more times. I got 4 loppers from Walmart in that job, and they broke. All of them broke. Every one of them broke. And then I ended up having to go and spend $60 anyways on the steel ones, just so I could get the job done. And that's an example of, something not having strength or having strength. And so we're referring to strength. We want to talk about strength in men. Man was made to be strong. He was made to have dominion. He was made to conquer the earth. He was made to serve his God and to achieve the work that God gave him. He was made to guide his wife. He was made to lead his family. He was made to protect them and provide for them. He was made to lead a family and guide a wife. He was made to teach. This is what a husband was made to do. Teach, to train, to reprove, to rebuke, to correct his wife and his children. He was made to serve God first and foremost, and to serve his community with his family at his side. And a man cannot do any of these, or at least he can't do them well, if he does not have strength. All right? You have to be able to develop strength. So how do we develop strength? How do we develop strength? Okay, listen. A man is born as a baby boy. Physically, he will progress in size and stature till he's about 16 and 17. And I've seen this many times because I'm very blessed. I have my oldest child is a son, and he has 2 sons and a daughter. And I have a little boy who is 15 months old, Sergey. So in my life right now, I have a perfect example of a baby boy and a full-grown boy, and I have boys in between that are, I have a 4-year-old Basil, and I have all my high school and college age guys that are men or becoming men. And so by the age of 16 to 20 years old, they've developed the stature from small state of being a boy to the physical state of being a male of adult stature and proportions. But not every adult male is a man. This is important. This is important. If you're 45 years old and you spend a bunch of time sitting on the computer playing video games, you're not a man. You're a boy. You're a boy. And it's really important that you understand this. Just because somebody is grown as a male specimen does not mean that that human being is a man. A man has to develop strength, and that strength also includes strength of character. And if a man has strength of character, he's going to know that he doesn't own time. God owns his time, and he's owned also by God. So this creature, who is created by God, is given the responsibility of take care of this thing that we call time. And if he has strength of character, he's not going to steal from God or waste God's time doing stupid things that an adult man doesn't have time to do. Does that make sense? So we're going to talk about strength. Strength of character. So as a child, a boy, in the normal order of that God originally would be guided by. Okay, so let me say this again. in the order that God intended men to live, this is how it would be. A little boy would be guided by other men, his father or other men, grandpas, uncles, big brothers, and so forth. He would, number one, he would be put through many rigors and challenges and ordeals and situations as a boy. This is what we're talking about. How does somebody become strong? He starts out by going through these things, these challenges. Then the boy would be brought from a state of boyhood, a babyhood, into boyhood, steadily and progressively, giving them, the older men would steadily and progressively give this boy more work, increased levels of stress. You get this? Little babies go from babies to boys. When they become boys, they're given jobs, tasks, stress. They're given expectations that they are pushed to accomplish so that they can succeed and feel what that is like to have been faithful, and they can fail so that they can get scolded and begin to learn what it's like to have people correct you. This is what used to be normal. This is how people developed naturally into men, and how the cycle of men from one generation to the next and to the next and the next just progressed. Are you with me? So like if you have a baby and he's with his father or his uncles and his grandfathers, they're going to take him, then they're eventually going to give him a job. If he does a bad job, they're going to tell him, son, you did a bad job. He's going to get his feelings hurt. They're going to say, why are you crying? Well, I mean, you're mean to me. No, I love you, but you can't do a trashy job on this. Well, I don't know how to do a good job. Good. I'll teach you. And then you bring him to the next level. Are you with me? This is how it goes. So then, steadily and progressively, the men in his life, usually a father, but grandpas and uncles, employers, give them more work, increased levels of stress, less comfort, and more pain. Why? Because the young man or the boy goes from being coddled, like my little Basil, who all the little girls love, or Sergei, they love to hold him. And he is super cute. And I love to hold him too, actually. And I love to rock him. And like, he hardly lets me rock him. But I love to. But if I have to rock him when he's 8 years old, I mean, this is something wrong. But the problem is that instead of being rocked like he should have and started working, there have been these other weird things that the demonic world has introduced to humanity that give the same sort of cuddly comfort that cuddle of a mom or a dad had when they were 1 and 2 and 3 to a child that is 8 and 9 and 10 and 12. And that is what we're talking about. And this is why playing video games not all the time is a bad thing. But video games become like this. It just is so much fun. It just feels so good and it's comfortable, or movies or whatever it is. And it just trains us in not having this. All of these things become very normal. What becomes normal? Increased levels of stress. Normal to have less comfort. Normal to have more pain. And by the time that in the old days, a young man was 16 or 17, he should know how to work hard, be able to do work in jobs that he doesn't enjoy without complaining. Did you know that they use the word work because it's just work. It's not fun. Like, it's okay. Like, here's a clue. Like, don't say, I don't like that kind of work. Whatever you determine you want to be, and you like it when you're little, it will eventually become work. And you'll be like, ah. And if your psychology is not straight, You don't think maybe something's wrong with you. I'm just not content. I just don't like it anymore. I don't have a purpose in life. Well, it's because you've been sold the bill of goods that you're going to like everything that you do. And it's gonna be fun. Like, I like to mow yards and I like to fertilize, but it's work and it is hard work. You know what I'm saying? So you can enjoy your stuff, but it's gonna be hard. He should be able to bear the pressure of having to get a job done in a small period of time with an increased intensity at work. Like, say, something says there's something that just has to get done, like this. The cows got out and ran into the neighbor's place, and they're trashing their yard, and we're ruining our name as Mitchells in the county because our cows are getting out and trashing people's properties. And it's 10 o'clock, and we worked all day, and we did church for 4 hours, and now we find out that the cows are trashing people's place. Like, boys, we got to get these cows, we got to get them picked up, and we've got to get them in a place, and it just doesn't matter. And we're not stopping till we get done. That's just an example. Like, this job just has to get done, and we're not stopping until this is done. This happens a lot when somebody's a man. Well, a lot of people don't get this wonderful opportunity to have all this big stress when they're 14, 15, 16, 17. But it's actually good for you, because you just want to yell and you're like, I don't know if I can do this, or I can't get across this, or it's too hard, or whatever. But the reality is you can do so much more than you think you can do. I mean, like, you as a human being have so much more capabilities than our society gives you credit for. I mean, like, you have such an amazing an ability to do stuff. But most people aren't trained in this at all. But this was what normally happened. Okay. By the age of 16 and 17, he should be able to hear people yell at him or his employer yell at him without him going and crying and getting bitter. Did you hear that? If somebody corrects you, you should not get bitter. You know, that's just how life always was. Because when things are intense, sometimes people are like, don't do that. Don't do that. And I was at this church service, and the bishop was there. And there was something that he didn't like. There was not enough host. And he came back and he said, I just about ran out. Don't ever do that again. You always need to have more than enough. And the lead priest was like, yes, Vladika, yes, Vladika. And he just took it right on the chin. That's just normal. So if the bishop comes and he like chews you out, it's a blessing. The bishop, like, at least the bishop, it was the bishop. Not hardly anybody gets chewed out by the bishop. That's a blessing, you know. So, but you know, like, people can't take it. I have this weird relationship with this. Do you guys have Sutherlands in Texas and around the different states? Like, we have this Sutherlands, and it's like this like box chain, but it's kind of hometowny. And the manager there, he likes us because we buy a lot of stuff from him. Maybe he doesn't really like us, but he's good at acting, and anyway, he's good at making us think that he likes us, and that makes us feel nice. And so we go there. Anyways, I was asking him about hiring stuff, and he has all just old people that work for him. He cannot find any young men that have the capacity to work for him because nobody can take correction. I mean, this is in his world, in Joplin. This is in Southwest Missouri even. And so this is not, what I'm talking about is stuff that used to be normal, but now it is not the norm. So he should be able to hear people yell at him without crying or getting bitter. He should be able to have all sorts of unexpected, unfortunate, disappointing events happen in his workday and still be able to make it and try to get the job done without going off and crying or becoming bitter or like quitting. This is an important process that boys need to go through in order for them to become men. A man, by the very essence of his being a man, is created to do these above things. To serve God, to lead his family, to guide his wife, to bear the weight of providing for family, bearing the emotional pains and struggles that a family goes through. Listen, when you're a man, oftentimes events of life can be compared to being on a battlefield, living in a war zone where real bullets are really passing over your head. Being a married man is like this. At first, when you get married, it's nice, and throughout a lot of marriage, it's nice, but it's a struggle. You have to be able to bear a lot of pain. You have to bear a lot of pressure in life and be able to maintain a clear enough mind that you can still do your job at work, come home, comfort your wife, listen to your children, do your chores, get them done, pray to your Creator, the Holy Trinity. And let me just give a word to this. Listen, about this war situation, this really is how it is when you're married. And I think violence is horrible, and it's the exact opposite of what the Lord desires. But there was a movie once called We Were Young, We Were Soldiers and Young. And I would not suggest you watch it, but it is a lesson in character, bad character, good leadership, bad leadership. But in this film, you see it's the first battle in the Vietnam War, and they take all these guys in, and then they're trying to find the bad guys, and they just get overrun. And I mean, it's horrible. I mean, it's so horrible. It's just such a horrible, and this is true life. This happened. Mel Gibson is the general who's in charge, or he was a colonel or something. But I mean, bullets literally in this thing were flying from the enemy. People were being killed. They had a broken arrow, which means that all of the airplanes and the choppers that the Air Force had came, and they just toasted everything except for this little dime-sized spot where all the soldiers were supposed to get back to. And if they didn't get back there, they were done for. And you see in this general who is having to keep his head on straight. People are coming to kill him. I mean, this is horrible, but he's having to make decisions, and someone's about to get him, and there's the enemy, and he's like, no, get this chopper over here. Oh. And he's making a decision because he had learned how to bear under pressure and lead when everything was breaking loose. And this is how it is so often in marriage. You're married. You get going. You have one child. You have two child. The baby gets whooping cough. It's up all night long. It can barely breathe. Should you go to the hospital? Should you not go to the hospital? Your wife is just an emotional wreck. You feel like an emotional wreck, but you have to stay steady. Later on, you have 3 or 4 children. Life is going well, and you have a miscarriage. And that's horrible. I've had 6 miscarriages. I haven't. My wife had, but that means I've been a part of it. And life is hard. You go to serve. You're serving God with your whole heart. Your family's involved. You're doing stuff. People slander you. They lie. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes on accident. You are deeply hurt. You follow Christ. You find the Orthodox Church, and you start following it, and everybody who you love leaves you. And your wife is so struggling, and your children are about to leave. This is what it's like. This is like bullets coming past your head. And if you can't take it when somebody says, like, what are you doing? Like, you got to start thinking about this. Like, look, we're at this job. This is your responsibility. Like, well, I didn't know. Like, well, can you add 2 + 2? Like, are you a moron? Like, you got to think. like, nobody says that hardly anymore. I mean, it's too hard for people. But I'm just saying, like, I mean, I don't say that to my guys. Don't think I don't say that to anybody. But I sometimes want to say it to some of my sons. And I think that you guys, especially you young guys, anybody who's listening to this that's not old, you need to understand that you've got to get an ability to bear stress. Because if you are a man, to be strong means to bear under the weight of whatever it is. And if you are going to be strong spiritually, you have to gain strength so that you can do the work spiritually that God wants you to. And then when you start doing the work for God, you will bear spiritual attack. And when you are bearing spiritual attack, if you're not strong, you'll break. And it's usually not like spiritual attack like that. It's usually like, hey, you want to watch this movie? And you've made some progress towards purity? Or, hey, you maybe struggled with porn for a while, but then you've had several months of purity. And then something happens and you're really tempted. Well, that strength, if you've developed it, will help you get through that. So this is what strength is. And life is like a battle, and we are called warriors of Christ, but we need to be strong. You need to be strong. Sorry, I already talked about this. Okay, so how do you become a man of strength? How do we become a man of strength? Joel's question on how would you define a effeminate man was really hard, because it's like it's hard to describe. But the best way to not become effeminate is to learn how to have godly strength, because there is a polarity, like Joel was expressing. Like, you have just horrible amount of effeminacy in the world, but then you have this very bad toxic masculinity that's not really correcting effeminacy. It's just like, worldly, satanic, prideful, brutishness masquerading as something like, well, at least I'm not effeminate. That's not what I'm talking about here. Just because you have guns or you can bench press a lot of weight does not mean that you're a godly man who has strength. A man who has strength can bear under the pressure of life and be a godly man. So the first thing is to determine that you want to be a man of strength. And you can't deceive yourself. In the Orthodox world, when we're talking about this in our spiritual life, we call it self-honesty. This means that we will tell ourselves honestly the sins that we have and that we struggle with. And if you don't know, just stop and ask God, God, please convict me of my sins. Please reveal to me what sins I struggle with. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of times when you're starting out that you just don't know what your sins are. You might be like, well, I don't really struggle with a lot of stuff. Well, you actually do. You just don't know it. You just haven't taken the time to actually sit down and think like, And probably you just haven't actually read a lot of the New Testament so that you could even identify what is right and what's wrong. Once you start doing that and you start asking God, God, give me a broken and contrite heart. God, convict me of my sins. God, help me be aware and help me to identify the things that I really need to work on in my life. Then it will start happening. So you have to do that first. That's the starting point. And once you start doing that, it's the same with strength here. You have to start by telling yourself that you're weak. Okay? You have to start and tell yourself that you're weak. You have to literally tell yourself, maybe even outside with your mouth, but definitely inside of your mind and in your heart, I'm a weak male. I'm weak. I'm weak. I still do this. Like when I get annoyed with my wife or frustrated or she says something and I'm really bothered, I try to first thing be like, you're so weak, Steve. You're so weak. You're so weak. Just strap it on. Calm down. Be a godly man. Because so much of my, like, why in that instance, why am I weak? Because my feelings got hurt. My pride was damaged because probably she's suggesting something and my way she's not just accepting, but actually probably her way is better anyway. That's how it is a lot of times. Okay, so then we tell ourselves that we're not strong and that we need to become strong, and then that we be honest with ourselves and identify where we are weakest at. You can't attack everything all at once, but you can take inventory and be like, yeah, I'm not here. Like, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but like, have you ever played a video game where you're driving a car and you have like all these different 10 cars to choose from, and you're like, this car has these, it's really good here, but it's really bad here, bad tires, but it has like nitro, and so, like, you have to do this to yourself. Now, don't go play those games anymore, but you know what I'm talking about. So you do this to yourself. I'm really weak here, and I'm weak here, but I'm worse here. And so get these all figured out in your mind, where you're weak, be honest with yourself, and then begin to start working on these areas where you're weakest. For instance, when I was growing up, I did not have a dad. I only wanted comfort and ease, and it really, really hurt my feelings when people would correct me or tell me that I was doing something wrong. I realized that I was weak, and even to this day, it is still quite painful to have somebody correct me. I think it's pretty painful for everybody to get corrected, but I think it's worse for some people, and it was not easy for me. And in fact, I was so weak that when I worked on the ranch, I would always hurt when my boss would just be like, hey, go do this. And he never said please. I was like, why won't he say please? You know, like, I'm trying to work for him. I don't know what to do. And he's just like, hey, get in the tractor and go do this. Hey, go get the horse and move him over there. I'm like, won't he ever tell me please? You know, and, you know, I'm like, And now I became a dad, and I'm just like, I don't say please on purpose because I'm trying to teach my sons, like, and because I got into college and I started reading the Gospels, and here's what Jesus says. Maybe you know this one. Jesus says, so here's a king, and he has a slave, and he's working in the field, and he's plowing all day, and he's working hard, he's plowing all day, and then he comes in, and he's dirty. And what does the king say to him, or what does his master say to him? Does he say, thank you for working so hard in the field. Go get cleaned up. Come here and sit down and let me get something for you. And Jesus says, no. He says, go clean up and make me supper. Did you know that parable? And then you want to know what the slave says? And Jesus says, does he need to say, thank you or please? And he says, no. What the slave says is, yes, I'm your unprofitable slave. Oof. And that was really powerful to me when I was young. And I just realized, like, I am not thinking that I'm an unprofitable slave, but that's really what I am. Like, I'm not really good at anything, and I'm definitely not super smart. If I have one good thing going for me, I can work hard. But besides all that, like, I'm pretty deficient in every area. But, you know, this is what we have to do. And we have to understand where our weakness is, and that was one of my big ones. Yeah, but now, like, I remember I was going with Bishop John, and we were going somewhere, and he just really was correcting me about something. And I was just like, oh, it was kind of hurting my feelings. I'm like, He kept saying more and more. I'm like, but I was just like, yes, Ladika, yes, this is good. And I just kept telling myself, like, it's okay if you have conversations with yourself in your head, just so you guys know. Like, something can hurt. You can be like, this is so mean. And then you have the better part of you says, no, you need this. No, Stephen, you need this. You need Vladika to do this to you because you're weak. You're a weak man. You can't handle even Vladika just correcting you about something that's small. Grow up, Steve. So, okay. So then I have these conversations with myself. And this is just how life goes. It's normal. And it's okay. You're not like out of your mind. But that's what you have to do to get strong. So we're going to go through this book starting tomorrow morning, and we're going to look at these passages that are intended to focus us on, my intent is to focus these passages that teach us about physical strength or emotional strength or strength of character or the spiritual strength. So that's the lesson for tonight on strength. It's the introduction to our look at 1 Peter. And with that, we're going to close out. Is there any questions? Anybody have any questions? Okay, it was a little longer than 15 minutes. Will you forgive me? Okay, let's